Hi, I'm Rossum, the Delaware Riverkeeper. We've come to Boston today as part of our Shale Truth Interview series to consider the implications of exporting liquefied natural gas from the United States to other countries. There's mounting evidence to demonstrate that engaging in LNG exports is harmful to the U.S. economy and to our environment. I'm going to be speaking with Dr. Elizabeth Stanton, Senior Economist with Synapse, a consulting firm that considers energy and environmental issues. Dr. Stanton is also a research fellow at the Global Development and Environment Institute at Tufts University. So if, for example, the city of Philadelphia were to transform its fleet of vehicles to ones that operate off of natural gas, and to support, encourage, and secure an LNG export facility within the boundaries of the city or it's in close proximity to it, what could be the implications for the city of Philadelphia's vehicle fleet by virtue of having the LNG export facility right next door?
I don't know that it quite works that way. I mean, I think it's more a competitive issue on the aggregate. So if you have a broad policy across the United States of conversion to electric generation through natural gas, fleets of vehicles through natural gas, that's a lot of demand. That big effect on demand is in competition with the policy that we're thinking about here, which is not that one export terminal will be built in Philadelphia, but rather that a whole bunch of export terminals are going to be built up and down all three coasts, right? So it's a little bit different issue, and I certainly don't know that there's a local competition issue. I would say more generally about the issue of conversion of electricity generation and of vehicle fleets and what have you, heating systems to natural gas, that it seems short-sighted in a couple ways. And one, we've already seen that we've had all of this conversion and there have been problems with distribution because of it, not economic distribution, but distributing the natural gas, getting it to the right places. A lot of new power plants and so forth, and like here in New England, we don't have enough pipes to bring us the natural gas to serve all of the uses of it. And there, in the winter, when we need the natural gas for heating, there's competition for that resource. And so we're having to take a few steps back and build more distribution to be able to serve it. So short-sighted there, you got to think through, if everybody's going to be using it, can you get enough to the right places in a safe way? But then short-sighted in another way, which is there are a number of states around the country. There's advocacy for the U.S. as a whole to have this kind of policy, but we don't. But there are a number of states that have specific greenhouse gas emission goals, targets for how they want to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. There are particular cities that do as well. And I think that a policy of conversion to natural gas is somewhat in conflict with those goals, that in the short run, you get a benefit because natural gas does have lower emissions than some of the fossil fuel alternatives, certainly. But if your goal is to reduce your emissions, your state emissions by 80 or 90% by 2050, which is what some of those state goals are, you're not going to get there by transferring to natural gas. What you're going to do is lock in a natural gas infrastructure that's now a young, robust infrastructure, not like our older infrastructures that now you have to figure out what to do with as you want to try to meet the more and more stringent goal to get to 80 or 90% reduction. And those two things are going to be, they're not going to work smoothly together. No. I think that with the issue of life cycle emissions from natural gas, that's an area where we're still figuring it out. We don't know what the final result is going to be in terms of the full life cycle of natural gas versus the full life cycle of coal or oil, or depending on what kind of purpose you're switching out for. That the kind of research that we're seeing is very varied. It seems to be quite specific to particular systems, and we haven't quite figured out yet what the answer is. And then, of course, if you want to compare that life cycle, you need to compare it to the life cycle of another fuel. If you want to compare it to the life cycle of particular renewables of wind, then you want to be sure to examine the upstream impacts of manufacturing your wind equipment to do the appropriate comparison, right? Which wind would probably come out a lot better on that one. But I was making a little different point, which is that let's say your state, you're Massachusetts, you have an 80% emissions reduction target. You want to reduce your emissions to just 20% of what you had in 1990 by 2050. That's what our goal is. Well, you could make some progress along the way by doing these conversions to natural gas, and that'd be real progress, and you'd really reduce your emissions, and that would be great. And you're down 20, you're down 30, you're down 40, but you're heading for 80. And if you ever want to get to 80, you're not going to do it by having natural gas as your main fuel. And now what you've done is you've put in infrastructure that's going to last 50 or 100 years. That's its value, is being that durable. And you're here in 2030 or 2040 trying to figure out how to get down to your goal, and finding that having natural gas generation is not compatible with that. Having a natural gas vehicle fleet is not compatible with that, and that you need to be heading towards 100% renewables in order to get where you're going. If those are our goals, something like 80% in 2050, 90% in 2050, then I think we need to start thinking about that now and investing in energy efficiency, investing in renewables, that we have the technology now, we can do it now. And even where the cost might be slightly higher, you need to look at the long-term cost of having to abandon that natural gas infrastructure in 2030 or 2040 to get where you're going.